What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, the International Boxing Federation, better known as the IBF, President Mr. Peoples, they have ordered undefeated welterweight superstar title contender, the Phenom, as I refer to him, JARON Boots Ennis, who has 29 wins, no losses, no draw, 27 big wins by way of knockout. He is 25 years of age, 5'10" with a 74-inch arm reach, to be able to face off against the undefeated, unified, three-belt WBC, WBA, IBF, welterweight world champion superstar boxer, who is widely considered by many to be top two, if not number one, definitely top three, top five, best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and Errol "The Truth" Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. is 27 wins, no losses, no draws, 28 wins, no losses, no draws, 22 big wins by way of knockout, 32 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach. Errol Spence Jr., he holds the IBF title, and Mr. Peoples, according to JARON Boots Ennis' father, trainer, and manager, BOZY Ennis, have been given a 120-day notice, which is 4 months, to respond to the mandatory challenge of JARON Boots Ennis or run the risk of being stripped of his title. Now, we know Errol Spence Jr., he's focused on the mega massive showdown between himself and undefeated three-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the reigning WBO World Boxing Organization welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, in Terrence "Bud" Crawford. Terrence Crawford is 39 wins, no losses, no draw, 30 big wins by way of knockout. He is 35 years of age, 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. That's the fight Errol Spence wants, and Errol Spence wants that fight for undisputed. But it seems like Errol Spence, he's going to possibly have to go through JARON Boots Ennis to get to that finish line. Now, Errol Spence has another mandatory that he's been ordered to face off against, and that's the World Boxing Council President Mauricio Suleiman, board of 32 members, and the WBC to face off against former unified WBC, WBA welterweight world champion superstar boxer Keith one-time Thurman. Keith Thurman is 30 wins, 1 loss, no draws, 22 wins by way of knockout, 34 years of age, 5'8" with a 68, 69-inch arm reach. So the WBC and GTB, and which is Tom Brown's Promotions, TGP, excuse me, they have petitioned for the WBC and the other sanction bodies, the WBA, World Boxing Association, President Gilberto Mendoza, and the IBF, to allow Errol Spence to face off against Keith Thurman for his next fight. So I'm a bit confused, and so is the boxing world, as to how can the IBF now suddenly give Errol Spence a 120-day notice to face off against JARON Boots Ennis or run the risk of being stripped, seeing as though they were on par to allow Errol Spence to face off against Keith Thurman. As TGB, Tom Brown Promotions, they have stated they petitioned, and it had been approved, okay, to let Errol Spence face off against Keith Thurman for his next fight. The WBA actually was in line first. Now, what's interesting here to note is that Errol Spence hasn't fought his IBF mandatory since he fought against Carlos Ocampo, and that was back in 2018. So his IBF mandatory is definitely due. It's definitely time for his IBF mandatory. But with that said, the WBA and Ennis, who's the regular champion, they was in line to fight Errol Spence next, right? Because we know that they didn't even want to allow Errol Spence to unify the belts against Cuban's star WBA welterweight former champion in Yordenis Ugas. Okay, Yordenis Ugas was ordered to face off against Ennis, who was his mandatory. Okay, and Yordenis Ugas, he petitioned, as well as myself and the fans of the sport, to allow Errol Spence to face off, or should I say allow Yordenis Ugas to face off against Errol Spence in the unification, and they granted it. And Ennis, he got step-aside money. He was on the undercard, Errol Spence, Yordenis Ugas, and he fought Butab on the undercard, right? And he's the WBA regular champion. So he was supposed to immediately get the opportunity to fight Errol Spence next. But the WBA allowed the WBC and Keith Thurman to leapfrog them. So Amanda Stanionis is now going to face off against undefeated Mexican superstar welterweight title contender Virgil Ortiz Jr. in his next fight. So it looks like it's going to be Virgil Ortiz versus Amanda Stanionis. But this was because they petitioned to allow Errol Spence to face off against Keith Thurman in his next fight. So I don't understand how is the IBF now going to put Errol Spence in this position where they're willing to strip Errol Spence in 4 months, because Errol Spence, he suffered another car accident December 10th that pushed his initial date back. And maybe that's the reason why they are willing to do this, because he was initially supposed to fight Keith Thurman in February. He was supposed to announce it, as he stated, in December 13th or December 14th. He was going to announce his fight with Keith Thurman in February, right? Which means Errol Spence, he now stated that his fight date and ring return has been pushed back until May or June. Okay, so if he did fight Keith Thurman in February, well, that would be on par with what the IBF wants, which was to allow him to fight Keith Thurman, to give him the pardon, and then order him to fight JARON Boots Ennis before his 4-month period, right? From the February date, which would be, I guess it would have went to a purse bid after his fight with Keith Thurman in February, around that time, and he would have a certain amount of time to answer it, or would go to a purse bid, or so on and so forth. Okay, but it looks like the IBF is now looking at it from a standpoint and saying, well, if you're not going to fight Keith Thurman in February, we can no longer hold up since you didn't satisfy mandatory in 4 years. So JARON Boots Ennis is now on deck, and JARON Boots Ennis, after he fought and beat Cussio Clayton, he was asked, because he's ranked high in all the sanction bodies, the WBO and the IBF, to point out the two, and the WBC as well. And he stated that he wanted to go the route of fighting Errol Spence. He was the IBF mandatory, and he wants to fight Errol Spence. And, it looks like Errol Spence may be forced to fight JARON Boots Ennis in his next fight if he wants to fight Terrence Bud Crawford for undisputed. Okay, so it looks like Errol Spence is going to be forced to fight, instead of Keith Thurman, JARON Boots Ennis in June. But it also looks like Errol Spence may be in a position where he's going to have to vacate one of these belts, because the WBC has ordered him to face Keith Thurman. So if he don't face Keith Thurman, he's going to be stripped of the WBC title. But if he don't face JARON Boots Ennis, he's going to be stripped of the IBF title, right? So it puts Terrence Crawford in it puts Errol Spence in a tight position. Now, what I will say is maybe Errol Spence can petition to negotiate with Terrence Crawford and ask for a pardon from the WBC and the IBF, and go ahead and fight and negotiate with Terrence Bud Crawford, so he could go ahead and get that fight out the way. And I don't see either one of the sanction bodies standing in the way and allowing that to take place. So we got to see how this unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button, drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notification. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like your shitty videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.